This hearing of the Subcommittee on Delivering on Government Efficiency will come to order. Welcome, everyone. Without objection, the chair may declare a recess at any time. I recognize myself for the purpose of making an opening statement. Good afternoon and welcome, everyone. I would like to start by playing a video of why we are here today. So if we can go ahead and play that, please. Where's our digital team? Where's our digital team? Here we go.
Executive order to ban men from playing in women's sports.
That there are only two sexes, male and female, and we are not going to tolerate biological men competing in sports or impeding in private spaces for women like myself or you.
The female fencer was given the ultimate punishment for refusing to compete against a biological man.
At the Portland Interscholastic League Championships, a trans sophomore runner from McDaniel High School.
And Thomas pulling away over the final 150 meters. Thomas wins the NCAA championship.
Men should not be, they're hurting women. They're hurting women very badly. They're hurting women.
I was severely injured in a high school volleyball game by a transgender athlete on the opposing team.
Anyone who disobeys federal law will be either prosecuted, sued, or say goodbye to your federal funding.
I also signed an executive.
Female athletes should never be forced to compete against mentally ill biological men who parade around in women's clothes. But we'll hear from witnesses today who had to face off against biological male competitors. This led one to suffer a life-altering physical injury from a volleyball spike to her head. The other was thrown out of a recent fencing competition for refusing to compete against a man. Why is this happening when we have federal laws on the books intended to foster women's sports? Back in 1972, Congress adopted Title IX to create and protect equal athletic opportunity for girls and women in schools and colleges. Congress included similar language in legislation governing other amateur sports competitions. The law chartering the U.S. Olympic and Paralympic Committee, for instance, authorizes the Olympic Committee to recognize and empower national governing bodies to oversee individual sports on a national level. That includes determining how athletes are chosen to represent the U.S. in the Olympic Games and other international competitions. These NGBs, such as USA Fencing, have statutory duties and obligations, including promoting equal athletic opportunity for women, biological women. Specifically, NGBs are to provide equitable support and encouragement for participation by women where separate programs for male and female athletes are conducted on a national basis. Yet, USA Fencing makes a mockery out of women's fencing by allowing biological males to compete in its women's fencing competitions. We understand there are roughly 200 biological males competing in the USA Fencing women's division. This includes males who have won national titles and represented the U.S. in international competition in women's fencing. We subpoenaed the board chair of USA Fencing, Damian Lafelt, to appear here today. We did so because the board is responsible for setting USA Fencing policies and for ensuring those policies comply with federal law. At a recent board meeting where Mr. Lafelt presided, the board determined it would change its policy on transgender athletes if and only if forced to do so. Some science shows that men have numerous physical advantages over women that create unfair and potentially dangerous competitions. Such physical advantages are significant in fencing. According to a letter we received from USA Fencing Board member Andre Giva, a coach of Olympians and world champions, Quote, transgender women fencers have significant advantages in women's competitions, he writes, citing advantages in body size, reach, shoulder width, muscle development, explosive strength, and recovery capacity. And a United Nations report issued last year finds that testosterone suppression does not eliminate the advantage of biological males to avoid the loss of a fair opportunity. It concludes, males must not compete in female categories of sport. But it's not surprising that the USA fencing policy on trans competitors ignores the science. The board is not shy about putting politics ahead of the sport, ahead of women, and ahead of the law. In selecting sites for its national fencing events, for instance, the board policy is to avoid states whose laws and policies on LGBTQ rights and abortion it opposes. It uses equality maps to determine which states to blacklist from its competitions and which states to favor. This ends up favoring a lot of blue states and harming a lot of red ones. So it creates politically determined winners and losers. But it has absolutely nothing to do with fencing. And it contradicts USA Fencing's statutory duty as an NGB to develop interest and participation throughout the United States in fencing. Recently, the board even voted against playing the national anthem at its events. So we shouldn't be surprised that the board opposed the creation of an all-female task force to reevaluate its transgender policy. And it has never surveyed its membership one simple question: do you support transgender athletes competing in women's competitions? Notably, Americans broadly have been polled on that question, and the response is overwhelming. A New York Times Ipsos poll this past January found 94% of Republicans, 67% of Democrats, and 64% of independents agree: keep men out of women's sports. Americans also reelected President Trump in November, and he spoke on their behalf in February when he issued his executive order keeping men out of women's sports. The United States is hosting the Summer Games in Los Angeles in 2028. It's a great time for us to once again take the lead in protecting and preserving the ability of women to engage in safe, fair athletic competition by keeping biological men out of women's sports. A United Nations report issued last August, most noted female athletes worldwide have lost out on numerous medal opportunities. Due to policies allowing males to compete in the women's category, more than 600 female athletes in more than 400 competitions have lost more than 890 medals in 29 different sports. I don't want any more women missing out on medal opportunities, avoiding athletic competitions, or missing out on college scholarships. And I don't want to see any more girls or women getting hurt. We cannot and should not forget the gruesome injury suffered by one of our witnesses here today, Peyton McNabb. It happened when she was spiked in the head by a male athlete who identified as a transgender woman. And I'd like to ask the digital team to please play this video now. That is sick. This is why I look forward to fighting and winning the battle to keep men out of women's sports alongside President Trump and brave women like Stephanie and Peyton who are here today. Now, you're going to hear from our Democrat colleagues who are going to fight for these mentally ill biological men to continue beating women and stealing their competitions, stealing their medals, and stealing their national championships. And with that, I yield to the ranking member, Stansbury, for her opening statement.
All right, well, thank you, Madam Chairwoman. As you can see, it's going to be an interesting hearing today. Welcome to the Oversight Committee, and in particular, the DOGE Subcommittee. I do want to say welcome to our guests and to your families. We do appreciate all of you coming here to tell your stories. But I want to make clear that this hearing is actually not about oversight or DOGE, but about spreading hate and using trans lives to distract from the real issues that Americans are facing, from attacks on our economy, to attacks on our democracy, to attacks on our communities. So let's call this hearing what it actually is. It's about bullying trans kids and members of the trans community to distract from the failed policies of the Trump administration, the failed policies and exploitation of this DOGE subcommittee, and the GOP's own cruel agenda that is happening right now here on Capitol Hill as they're trying to gut Medicaid, gut food assistance, gut environmental programs to give tax breaks to billionaires, because that is actually what's going on behind these doors all around us. So, as the ranking member of this subcommittee, let me start by saying to everyone in the trans and LGBTQ plus community who might be watching or listening today that we see you, we love you, we respect you, we are fighting for you, and we will fight back against this hateful agenda. Now, I do want to point out here at the outset that we are, in fact, in the Oversight Subcommittee on, quote unquote, delivering on government efficiency. And this is a committee here in Congress that was created this year by the GOP, supposedly to address government efficiency. And this hearing literally has nothing to do with that. In fact, it has nothing to do with anything that falls under the Oversight and Accountability Committee's jurisdiction. This hearing is so irrelevant to this committee, it's just a complete distraction from what is actually happening in Congress right now. So let's review what this subcommittee is actually supposed to be working on, since my friends seem to have forgotten that. In their own Rule 6 of this committee, this subcommittee shall, quote, have oversight jurisdiction over the federal civil service, including compensation, classification, benefits, federal property disposal, government reorganization and operations, transparency, performance, grants management, and accounting measures generally. That is the jurisdiction of this committee. And I don't know about any of you, but I don't see anything in here about sports, the Olympics, Title IX, fencing, and certainly nothing about policing the bodies of Americans. And frankly, hearings of this subcommittee have become so divorced from reality or anything resembling oversight and the jurisdiction of this committee, it's basically turned into a political campaign ad, as you just saw on these TVs. That's what this subcommittee has devolved into. And frankly, I think many of us expected that that's where we would end up. But meanwhile, Donald Trump is letting Elon Musk and his cabinet secretaries and OMB now continue to dismantle our federal agencies, to hack our private data. They're firing veterans and teachers and firefighters. They're trying to break Social Security and the VA. And there is literally no oversight happening here in this committee under the GOP. In fact, my colleagues have failed to bring even a single administration witness here to this committee. They haven't brought Elon Musk, they haven't brought a cabinet secretary, they haven't brought a political, they haven't brought anyone to this committee to answer to the lawless and immoral behavior that's happening inside the administration or anything that relates to the jurisdiction of this committee. That's why even though we had hoped on the Democratic side for real and meaningful bipartisan work to make the government more efficient, to make it work better for Americans, we have to sit here week after week and fight back against this abusive and lawless and ridiculous agenda. And, I want to just point out that there are now over 220 lawsuits against the Trump administration and over 130 court restraining orders and injunctions against them because of this agenda. So why did the chairwoman decide to call this hearing today? Why is it that we're trying to distract from an agenda that is so unpopular that 2/3 of Americans disapprove of what DOGE and Elon Musk is doing? Maybe it has something to do with the failure of the president in the first 100 days, that his approval ratings have declined by 14%. Maybe it's to distract from the reality that our economy is tanking and prices are going up. Maybe it's because the budget that came to Congress last week doubles down on proposals to take food out of the mouths of children. Maybe it's because behind closed doors all around us, they're trying to take away your Medicaid and your food assistance. So why bully trans kids? Why take up airspace to bully a population that only makes up 0.6% of the population? Because clearly they're living rent-free in the GOP's minds. But simply put, Republicans are focused on the wrong 1%. So why are they so obsessed? Why is Trump attacking trans people? Why is this the centerpiece of the Republicans here on Capitol Hill? Honestly, it's weird. And it's wrong. And I just want to say to all of the people in the trans community who are watching, we uplift your stories. We are fighting for the community. We are fighting for the rights of everyone in our communities. And this hearing has absolutely nothing to do with the Oversight Committee. And that is why, at this time, I make a motion to immediately adjourn this hearing.
Okay. The motion is not debatable. All those in favor of adjourning signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed signify by saying no.
No.
In the opinion of the chair, the noes have it, and a recorded vote will be asked for. The clerk will call the roll.
We will pause for the clerk to be ready.
Yeah, we'll pause for the clerk. A recorded vote is ordered. The clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Cloud.
No.
Mr. Cloud votes no. Mr. Fallon. Mr. Timmons. Mr. Timmons votes no. Mr. Burchett. Mr. Burchett votes no. Mr. Burleson. Mr. Burleson votes no. Mr. Jack.
No.
Mr. Jack votes no. Mr. Gill. Mr. Gill votes no. Mr. Comer. Mr. Comer votes no. Ms. Norton.
Yes.
Ms. Norton votes yes. Mr. Lynch? Aye. Mr. Lynch votes aye. Mr. Garcia?
Yes.
Mr. Garcia votes yes. Mr. Kassar?
Yes.
Mr. Kassar votes yes. Ms. Crockett?
Yes.
Ms. Crockett votes yes. Ms. Stansbury?
Yes.
Ms. Stansbury votes yes. Ms. Greene?
No.
Ms. Greene votes no.
The clerk will report the tally.
Ms. Chairwoman, on this vote, the noes are 7, the ayes are 6.
The noes have it, and the motion to adjourn is not agreed to. Also, pursuant to Committee Rule 6A2, Chairman Comer refers specific responsibility for the matter of this DOGE Subcommittee hearing regarding USA fencing hearing to Chairman Greene and the Subcommittee on Delivering on Government Efficiency. This hearing is directly under our jurisdiction. Without objection, Representatives McLean of Michigan, Mace of South Carolina, Crane of Arizona, Randall of Washington, Jacobs of California, and Simon of California are waived on to the subcommittee for the purpose of questioning the witnesses at today's committee hearing.
Madam Chair, a point of parliamentary inquiry.
What's your inquiry?
Could you please further expound about how this falls under the jurisdiction of the this subcommittee and the rules?
Ms. Stansbury, under Committee Rule 6A2, Chairman Comer of the Oversight Committee has referred responsibility for this hearing to the DOGE Subcommittee hearing regarding USA fencing.
So Chairman Comer is changing the rules so that now fencing hearings fall under Department of Government Efficiency?
Okay, this is the rule book right here, Ms. Stansbury. I'm sure you have a copy of it.
Can you read us
The
part
number
that
two,
refers fencing to this subcommittee?
Number 2, in addition, each subcommittee shall have specific responsibility for such other measures or matters as the chair of the committee refers to it. And this is the hearing that we are having jurisdiction over. It's an important issue that biological men stay out of women's sports, and we'd like to hold the hearing on that today, and we're going to continue and go ahead. I'm pleased to introduce our witnesses today. Stephanie Turner is a competitive fencer who recently took a knee at a USA fencing event to avoid facing a biological male in a women's event. Peyton McNabb is a former high school athlete and now an ambassador for independent women who was injured by a biological man in a high school volleyball game. Damian Lefelt is the chairman of the board of directors at USA Fencing, a recognized national governing body for fencing under the U.S. Olympic and Paralympic Committee as codified in the Ted Stevens Act. Fatima Goss-Graves is the president and chief executive officer of the National Women's Law Center. I want to thank you all for being here to testify today. Pursuant to Committee Rule 9G, the witnesses will please stand and raise their right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Let the record show that the witnesses answered in the affirmative. Thank you. You may take a seat. We appreciate you being here today and look forward to your testimony. Let me remind the witnesses that we have read your written statement and they will appear in full in the hearing record. Please limit your oral statement to 5 minutes. As a reminder, please press the button on the microphone in front of you so that it is on and the members can hear you. When you begin to speak, the light in front of you will turn green. After 4 minutes, the light will turn yellow. When the red light comes on, your 5 minutes have expired, and we would ask that you please wrap up. I now recognize Ms. Turner for her opening statements.